There is no fancy intro this week. This is Backlog Brain Rot, a chill media discussion podcast. With me today are Parrott,
Hello, hello.
Straw Hat,
Konnichiwa.
and I'm Connor. I'd ask how the month went for everyone, but it seems like there was a lot of gaming for Straw Hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're ready to get right into it this month.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about.
So for me, the first game I finished this month was BioShock 2. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because while we didn't do a special episode on BioShock 2, we did one on BioShock 1, which will be ready pretty sure this month at some point. And I did talk a little bit about BioShock 2 in that one. But basically, I did like the game. And I think the gameplay is better, but other than that, and the hacking's better. I did like the hacking, but other than that, I definitely preferred one. I just was a lot more invested in the characters and story. And as much as I liked the drill, I didn't like that you had to have fuel. And I really didn't like the horde, like tower defense type mechanic you had with the little sisters.
That could get a little tiring.
Yeah, because it was so often. But I mean, other than that, I think it's a really good game. I still gave it, I think, a 3.5 stars, and definitely looking forward to playing Infinite at some point. If it doesn't get chosen for me, which I think that's going to be the collab game that everybody wants me to play. But even if not, I'm definitely going to play it this year at some point.
Yeah, I think I played BioShock 2 back when I was like 13, 14, might have even been a little later than that. And I can't say it was nearly as revolutionary as BioShock 1, but I remember it having this kind of feeling to it that I still rather appreciated at the time. So it's definitely worth playing at least once, even if it's the valley between two mountains.
Yeah,
Right.
I definitely agree with that because I have played this game. I probably played it, I don't know. I think I played it like early college. So I went to college. I had a 360 all the way up through high school. And then I got my third red ring of death right before college. So I'm just like totally over Xbox at this point. So I bought a PS3 and I bought like a lot of games. And I know BioShock 2 was one of them at the time. So I played it somewhere in like the early college for me. So like I do remember the drill is like the one thing I do remember about this game, but it definitely is not nearly as memorable as the first or Infinite because I like just thinking about it as Straw Hat was talking, I'm like I just don't really remember a whole lot about this game. I remember it being pretty good, but it's not very memorable, like a decade later.
I just remember this persistent feeling of this world has died and you're exploring a graveyard in a kind of poetic, interesting way. But that certainly makes it a lower key story than the first time around.
For sure. Yeah, it just everything just feels more empty and not as like because it's like the after effects of what happened in BioShock 1.
Yeah.
And it's also just like BioShock 1 has one of the greatest settings in any video game. So it's still a great setting in 2, but it's obviously not as powerful when you've already seen it once before.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very much.
So now you got to move on to Infinite, which is, like Connor said, this game was the valley between the two peaks.
I know there's some people who like it more and some not quite as much, but regardless, people love it. So I'm not doubting that it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I'm very excited for you to get to that one.
Yeah, and you don't normally play a lot of like first person games either, do you?
No, never. That's what I just was going through the Steam library. This and Halo are going to be like my first person shooters for a while.
Yeah. You're having your FPS what's the word for that? Renaissance. Yeah. Exactly. You're having your FPS renaissance while last year I started my 2D platformer renaissance.
Ooh.
Or well, side scroller renaissance.
The best renaissance you can have.
Speaking of that,
yeah, I mean, I'll throw one of the. I mean, I've played quite a few this month. Believe it or not, I'm sure you're all surprised. But the last game I played this month, I just finished it yesterday or 2 days ago, was Kirby Amazing Mirror for Game Boy Advance. Have either of you played this one? Straw Hat, have you?
Yes, my brother. Actually, I have this game because my brother got it, and we played it all the time when he got it because it's 4 players if you have the link cables. I think you just needed one game, and it's basically like a Metroidvania, right? So you just kind of run around. Well, not really Metroidvania, but it's like you can run around the different worlds.
Kind of, like it is and it isn't because you do like a little opening level. So I played this alone. I feel like it would be really fun with 4 people because when you're playing alone, you can press like the right trigger and you can use your cell phone and call like AI Kirby's to help you fight. which is pretty entertaining. I mean, they hardly help you, I gotta say, but I just like use them as distractions so I could fight the bosses like while they just took all the hits. But it's like you play like opening level, and then you're dropped into like a main little area, and then like World One, I think it's called, and then that like branches out to all the different stages. So it is like almost a Metroidvania. It is a Metroidvania in like map style. You have like
Mm-hmm.
a map, which is that's my biggest complaint about the game. The map is not good. If you don't actually find like the specific map in each level, it's kind of hard to figure out where you're supposed to be going sometimes. But it's like a Metroidvania in the map style where you have to go to each of the, I think it was 8 or 9 different worlds, and it's just basically a large Kirby open world ish style level, and you have to find the correct boss, like find the correct room where the boss is, so you can get the piece in the mirror to like get all the pieces to get to the last level. But it's not a
Interesting.
Metroidvania in the way that you don't ever get any upgrades to allow you to do things that you couldn't do later.
All right. I played just a little bit of it on the DS way back in the day, just enough to know that I would have liked to have that game, but
Mm-hmm.
alas.
I'll just say I liked it. I honestly would say it's probably one of the best handful of Kirby games. I would say. I think it adds just enough complexity to it to make it, because Kirby's never very hard, but
No.
just having the exploring the map and looking for the right place to go, and then like having to have the certain power up that you get from a certain enemy to get to certain spots. Sometimes it's just enough complexity to it that it makes the game a little more engaging than a normal Kirby game.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a series I've had a hard time getting into, even though it looks very fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the ones I've tried is like the original one on the Nintendo. It was probably not the NES. It was like one of the
Game
early
Boy.
Super Nintendo or Game Boy
Oh,
ones,
okay.
yeah. And then the Epic Yarn on the Wii,
Mm,
which at
yeah.
that time was just way too simplistic for me at the point, but probably would still be fun for when I'm just need a chill, no brain game to do.
Yeah, Amazing Mirror is my brother's favorite Kirby game, and he loves Kirby. And it's probably one of my favorites too. But I'm not really a big Kirby fan. I did really like Dreamland One, just the original Game Boy one, even though it's really simple. But typically, I'm not that big a fan. But I'm gonna play through. I need to play through the 3DS ones, Planet Robobot, and the other one. I don't remember what it's
Uh,
called, but I heard especially Robobot is one of the best Kirby games.
yep.
People say.
I would agree with that. It's interesting because there are a lot of normal Kirby games, and then like there's also a lot of weird Kirby games, and I
Yeah,
just feel
that's
like
what I like
generally
about it.
the weird Kirby's are better. Like I love Canvas Curse and Mass Attack on DS, but
Yeah,
a good simple Kirby is good once in a while. But I'll say the Switch one, Forgotten Land, right? Forgotten
yeah,
Land, Forgotten World, whatever. That one's really good.
that one's got such an awesome style to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Funny little note is when I was trying to segue you there, I was reading Metroid Prime Remastered on your list and going, that's a 2D Metroidvania. No, wait, that's the Metroidvania that went 3D.
Yep.
So it was both things at the same time, and thus the point was lost. That was funny. All right. Well, my month started off with quite a heavy piece on the plate with Kuro no Kiseki 2. And that was like a 90 to 100 hour playthrough, and it was wonderful. Not nearly as consistent as Kuro 1, or at least it was 80 to 90%, but that last 10% is a pretty big gap as far as I'm concerned. But otherwise, I really enjoyed it.
So I have not played Kuro 2, so you've surpassed me because I've only played Kuro 1. So would you like Kuro 1 a little more, you mean then, or?
I would say I liked, yeah, the Kuro 1 I definitely liked more, as it was part of it was probably that I played Kuro 1 with a full fan translation and
Oh,
not
gotcha.
machine translation. So a lot more of the subtlety in the story was probably easier to understand. Although I will say that the machine translation wasn't bad. That was still like 95% of the time I understood what was going on. But never Ryoichi and I all
Mm-hmm.
kind of agree that there's a point in the story where we're kind of not sure whether it was just a gap in the writing or if there was something from the machine translation that made us miss some context. So when you get around to it, I would definitely suggest either waiting for a full translation or even waiting for the official one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, honestly, I really wanted to play Hajimori because of course that's kind of the end of the Cold Steel series and the Crossbell series, but Ryochi and Never and all of them got me to play Kuro, and of course I really liked it, but I would have probably been okay just to wait for the actual translation to come out, and that's probably what I'm going to do with 2 because I'm not in an awful hurry to get it, and while I did think the translations are good, especially with Kuro 1, it was really well. I would at this point I have enough other games. I probably am fine just waiting until it actually comes out because they are starting to catch up as well.
Yeah. And for science, we need you to be the counterexample, see how
Yeah,
you
exactly.
process it. But yeah, from the gameplay side, though, it was what I was hoping for, which was a step up in the tactical department. They ironed out some of the more abusable aspects of the strategy from the first one, like uh, you can't double up S crafts on characters anymore. So there's much less spamming or nuke spamming things to the ground from turn one.
That was definitely the biggest issue with me for Kuro 1 because especially if you've played tons of Trills games and coming off of Hajimori, which is a very tough Trills game, even on hard to normal, hard on Kuro, it was super easy. Like, I didn't think they really pushed back at all. So I'm glad they added, and I thought the combat was a little more simplistic because they changed it after coming off of Hajimori, but I figured they would get a lot better in the sequel.
Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for this one to feel a lot more like Hajimari than Kuro 1. So that was a bunch of pluses for me. And then there's a bunch more mini games this time around, which were kind of lacking in the first one, although not in a bad way, since that game
Mm-hmm.
was much more focused on setting up everything. But I am a sucker for JRPG mini games if they're done with some fun and
Mm-hmm.
levity. Yeah,
Is it as good as the card game in Cold Steel? I always liked that when I played that game. What is it called?
Oh, Blade.
I loved that for some reason. I just like whenever I got the chance to play Blade, I just sat there playing it.
there is a Blade-like card game in this one. None of us know how to play it though.
That
That's
that
one of the
makes
things where
sense.
it's like I'm not translating these rules. I'm looking at the cards go and trying to guess what exactly is happening. And God, yep, not getting there.
Seems a little hard. It seems a little hard to play if you don't know any of the rules.
Yeah, yeah. I think Vantage Masters from 3 and 4 is probably going to prove to be the best of them all. But it was an
Yeah.
interesting one, and I like the fishing mini game in this one. It's really
Ooh.
quick and fun.
Yeah, because they didn't have fishing in the first Kuro.
Nope, and they have corrected that grievous mistake.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll get there eventually, Parrot. Whenever the group picks it for you.
Well, they can try again.
Yeah, this this series has broken me on the fishing mini games. I hated them until I finished. No, I hated them until I think I was done with Azure, and then something snapped in my brain, and from that point on, I have to have fishing mini games in my JRPGs.
Mm.
I can
I'm just
understand.
broken.
I just have never. I don't think I've ever played a game where I loved doing fishing unless I was absolutely forced to. Unless it's something
Gosh,
so simple like Animal Crossing.
and the one in Trails from the Sky was so bad.
I know
Yeah,
that
I
I
don't think I
didn't
ever
like
did it.
that one at first, but Cold Steel I got into it, and then after that it was because I usually don't like fishing. Like the Persona games, I'll do it just to like get the stuff, but I don't enjoy it. Where the Trails ones I actually do like doing because they're not very difficult.
I actually had no idea there was a fishing mini game until in Persona 5 until like the Royal playthrough.
Yeah, because you never have any reason to go to that place really.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the beginning of my month.
All right, so for me, my next game that I finished was I know a game that Parrot has played, but I don't think you have, Connor, and that is Kenna Bridge of Spirits.
Nope, never touched it.
Now I know Moo also really loves this game, and I gotta say I was surprised how much I liked it because I knew how great it looked. Like that, it was a PlayStation showcase type game for the PS5 because it kind of reminds you of Pixar a little bit, Pixar and
Yep.
Pikmin. I think of because you get these little creatures. I don't remember what they're called now, but they can kind of help you in battle and stuff. But it does have a little bit of a Souls aspect, as most games do nowadays in the combat. And while the combat's pretty simple, I actually did really start to like it at the end because some of the boss battles are really fun to do. And of course, I love using bow and arrow. That's usually what I go to the most in these type of games. But the puzzles were fun, and while the story and characters definitely were not the best, I mean, it was fine. It did what it needed to do. Nothing really groundbreaking, but the graphics were definitely the focus of this, and it was the team's first game, so I still think they did a really good job, and I look forward to their next one.
Yeah, I really had similar thoughts. It's a really beautiful game, and I really just playing it, I felt like it was a really good throwback to like a PS2 or like early PS3 style
Mm-hmm.
of game where it's not a big open world, which I'm very sick of that, but it's just like it's like a map and there's secrets around and you look around for them, but it's very linear and you just wander around. There's like combat sections that are very like it's very clearly a combat section and then a puzzle section and then a combat and
Mm-hmm.
then some puzzle and just some platforming. And I just felt like it was a good throwback to like that style of game, which I just don't really feel like we get very much. And I definitely agree with the combat.
The game seemed very PS2, PS3
Yeah,
era in terms of design.
yeah, that's what I liked about it because that's like I don't know. I like the more that like the modern generation goes on, I just feel like that is like the sort of game I really miss being around. But generally, I agree. I thought it was like a solid game, but I didn't think it was anything particularly spectacular. It was very beautiful, but like I already don't remember really much of the story other than the very basic concept.
That's pretty much all there is to the story. It's basically your everything's corrupted because of somebody's action, and then you need to correct it, and then everything's good.
Yep, pretty much. The combat did get fun by the end though, like with the dashing and the bombs and the arrow. I almost feel like they should have introduced some of that stuff earlier because it would have been more appealing like the whole way through.
Yeah, near the end you fight kind of like a gauntlet of bosses, and that's when I'm like, okay, I could keep playing this, and then the game's over. It's like, well, because at the beginning I really didn't like the combat that much. It wasn't till the end where it started really clicking is when I started liking it.
I have that feeling about a lot of action games. It's like you could have enabled a few of these features a bit sooner for
Hmm.
us. Just some games take way too long to introduce the core systems.
Yeah, I know you don't want to overwhelm people at first, but I don't think you need to like string it along quite so long.
Give them a ramp, but don't make it too shallow.
Yeah,
Yep,
it was a pretty short game too, like 8 to 10 hours. I don't remember how long it took, but it was something like that.
my favorite. Little, 8 hours, a little long, but
long, long, he says.
but so another game I played this month was Metroid Prime Remastered. This was a game that I played back as a kid, and I definitely played like a few hours of it, but I don't think I ever got very far. Like I probably in like my whole time playing it on and off as a kid, I probably got as far as I got like now in like an hour. Because I think I was just the Metroidvania genre did not appeal to me as a kid because I was just too stupid and too impatient to like do anything. So playing it now, I was just really super into it. This was one of those games that I think it took me like 10 hours, something like that. And I played it in like 3 days, which is a lot for me. Finishing a 10-hour game in 3 days is not normally something I do. So you could
Hmm.
tell that I got really into it.
Impressive.
Yeah. And I really don't have very many complaints about it. I think that it's a little like obtuse at times where I didn't always know where I was supposed to be going, so I had to look up where I was supposed to be going, or I feel like the game at certain points, if you're like wandering around aimlessly for too long, it will just kind of like direct you to where you should be going. And then the
Yeah,
map is very old. It's very GameCube in a way that it does not function very well. I wish they tweaked that a little bit because sometimes you can just look at the map and like, where have I not been? I have no idea, and it's just like a small little square, being like,
yeah,
oh,
Yeah.
that's where I should have been. But
yeah. I haven't played this game. It's on my backlog to play. I'm trying to get the physical version on Switch, but it's really hard to find. Which if I want to play it bad enough at one point, I'll just download it. But I've heard everybody loves this game. Other than near the end, I've heard people complain that it's very backtracky and
it is.
obtuse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
that was another complaint I had with it because I felt like the whole rest of the game was flowing really nicely. You're exploring a lot and getting new powers constantly, they were all really fun. All the different weapons you got, but yeah, at the end it's a little bit. That's where I just like busted out the guide. I'm just like I don't have the patience to spend like 5 hours trying to figure this out on my own. I'm just gonna do this and just kind of grind through it really quickly.
Yeah, something I find is a fairly common trap for Metroidvanias to fall
Hmm.
into at the end.
Yep. Overall, I definitely would recommend it. I still think that I prefer 2D Metroid. Something about that is a little more appealing to me, but I will definitely play Metroid Prime 2 at some point. I throw in my backlog. I've kind of heard they're not going to fully remaster that one with the new controls, so I will probably just play the GameCube version at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Well, next on my list, in preparation for the FromSoft bosses poll, which will have been over by the time this comes out, I went ahead and finished my other outstanding grudge match FromSoft game, which was Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, which I started playing when it came out because my brother and I are very big fans of the studio, but I still sucked at the games, so it took me a few years.
This was always the Souls game I was interested in because I thought it looked so cool, and everybody's like, "No, if you don't like Souls game, don't play this." I'm like, "Okay," so I
I
won't.
I don't know how I feel about that because this one does feel more like a classic PS2 action game in terms of how everything is laid out and the combat even. It is a difficult combat, but like there's really only one core strategy, which is can make it more difficult for some people and easier for others. My hard part was trying to, you know, reconcile the rhythm it wanted me to get into because a lot of what I do in the proper Souls games is um, a lot of exploitations of the RPG systems. So, kind of depends on how you feel about the action. So, I would definitely give it a shot.
Okay. Yeah, I know I watched Dustin play it, I know for one. I'm like, it looks fun, but eventually, I mean, like I've talked about on the Discord, like I love 2D Souls game because I was playing Blasphemy, and that one is very like it's obviously a Metroidvania, like you've said
Yeah.
too, but it's definitely got Souls like combat and systems because if you die, you lose part of your powers and stuffs. But I do love the two like Hollow Knight too, so I would probably like it if I just
Yeah.
sit down and actually have patience.
Honestly, I think this is. I kind of see Metroidvanias and Souls like as the same genre offshoot from adventure games.
Mm.
But in terms of structure and like rewards and all that, I would say this one's actually fairly close to Hollow Knight in terms of like
Ooh.
how combat flows. And then the like you lose money and some trait points when you die, but uh, like they're not nearly as emphasized as they were in Souls. Where in Souls, it's your money to buy stuff, it's your stuff to get the all your stats, which are much more important there. Here, it's just like up. I'm broke the entire way through because I'm always dying, but I'm never underpowered, really. As long as you kill bosses, your stats go up. So if you explore, you get your stats, and then you can keep going.
Yeah, this one always looked cool, but I'm kind of a straw hat where I'm not always super into these games, or I'm not, you know, often good at them, so that's my issue. But this is probably one of the ones I would actually want to try.
It's definitely worth a shot. Like a good shot, get up to like Genichiro, that first one. If the combat clicks by then you're solid. But yeah, I finally got that off my plate, and I'm quite happy.
How many more are
Nice.
left? Have you played all of like the main Souls games,
The
Souls-like
only
games?
one I haven't finished is Dark Souls 2, and no one would really blame me for that one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard people don't like it.
It's it's weird. There's things that I like about it, but ugh, there's some things I really don't like about it. So that's not one I'm really targeting to finish. But yeah, now I can say I'm a proper FromSoft fan. I feel
Nice.
like I'm forgetting something, but we'll go with it. He was in fact forgetting something, but so was Sony. All right, what's next for you, Straw Hat?
All right, so the next game I'm just going to briefly touch on. It is Earthbound, which of course is the Super Nintendo cult classic JRPG, one of the best games on the system. And I did a special episode with Moki and RCT that you guys can look forward to hearing in the next couple months. The biggest surprise I definitely had with this game was I was just surprised how well it has aged. They did not do random encounters, which is always a plus for me, and just the writing and the characters are just all top notch. And it's also not that long compared to most JRPGs. So yeah, we're gonna go more in depth on our thoughts of it, but I definitely love and recommend this game, even to play today. It's still that good.
Nice. It's definitely on my backlog. I just haven't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to you guys talk about it. I played it probably like 5 years ago, and I also really liked it. I thought it held up really well back then too. So I just sat through and I played it, and I had like the PDF of the guidebook that the game originally came with, and that's just how I
Mm.
played it. And I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, it's definitely the type of game that you probably need a guide for, at least for some of the stuff, because it's just so obscure, some of the things you have to do. And without having the guide or knowing what's going on, you're going to get lost at times.
Yeah, definitely strikes me as a rather obtuse RPG, which is good, but is what it is.
All right, I'm going to also talk about my next one too. So I played Mega Man Battle Network 1 as part of the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. Now, this was my Pokemon growing up on the Game Boy Advance. I absolutely loved the Battle Network games. It's basically you're on the battle system is you control Mega Man on this 9 grid 3x3 grid, and you can move around freely, shoot your Mega Buster, do a charge shot, but you also have this deck of chips that you can use to like do more damage to the enemies that also move around. And yeah, they released the collection that has all the games. There's 6 games, but starting with 3, there's different versions, kind of like Pokemon does. But I played the first game, and it's definitely not one of the best Battle Network games. It's very rough, and you can tell they're just kind of getting their bearings. Like your health recovers after each battle, which isn't in the later ones, and just like the areas are kind of annoying to go through, honestly. The big thing about these games is they do have random encounters, and the encounter rates are extremely high. So one thing they did in this collection is they give you the ultimate buster that you can enable at any time, and it basically does 100 damage regular shot, just like your Mega Buster shot. So you can pretty much instantly wipe out all random encounters, which is nice if you are in a hurry, because typically these games can take, I don't know, 10 to 20 hours in that range, and you're usually
Wow,
more toward like 15. But if you can avoid the random encounters a lot, I beat it in like 9 hours. So
that's a much beefier game than I expected.
oh yeah, it's because the random encounters, they're so high. Like you get in, like anytime you're trying to solve puzzles or anything, you get in a battle, and those can take a little while. But
Yeah,
I definitely recommend the series, but it's Battle Network 3 is my favorite one, and I do like some of the later ones, but of course I just have a nostalgia for the series, so I'm going to play through them all slowly. Like I can't play them back to back, but
yeah.
I did enjoy it, but it definitely has issues.
Is that a series that you can just play a random one without having to play the other ones? I assume it is.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're going to miss like stuff that happens in the story like in previous games, but it's nothing major that you're really going to miss out on.
Yeah, I've always wanted to try one of these. I would maybe just try one of the better ones and just see how that
Yeah.
goes.
I started with 3. That's the first one I got, and it turned out to be like the best one. So it definitely worked out for me.
You're not going to miss out on a obscure NPC from the first game in the series turned into an important character in the 10th game.
Oh, you'll miss out on some deep character development, somebody being evil and then turning to good and stuff like that. But
Oh,
I'm
dang.
sure I'm sure you can just look it up. It's not Trail's level of lore.
Well, to be fair, what Connor said, that example, I would have missed that anyways. So
Yeah.
it
That's
wouldn't
true.
matter.
Fair
I would have
enough.
talked to them and forgot about them. So I'll go into my next game,
Oh, I
very quick
actually
one. Oh,
I
what?
had one last thing I was
No,
going to mention about
go
the
for it.
Battle Network games was I thought I had like zero experience with that series, but it turned out that a game I picked up with my friend on Steam, One Step from Eden,
Oh,
was
yep.
almost exactly that combat system.
Hmm.
It's even funny hearing that even like the card part wasn't just because card battlers became trendy in the last 5-10 years. It was actually from the get go how that system worked.
Yeah, I'm gonna play. I have that on my backlog too. But yeah, those are like the only 2 games that use that system, which is so weird. Like I can't believe more games haven't copied it, because it is a fun battle system.
It's certainly interesting. Not my favorite, but it's interesting.
All right, I'll move on to my monthly Sonic game update. Very quick, I played Sonic Advance 3 and it was a 2D Sonic game that was good. There was nothing bad about it particularly and there was nothing amazing about it. It was just kind of just a solid 2D Sonic game.
It
The
was
only
there.
Yeah, it was there. But honestly, just having solid game is honestly pretty good for Sonic. So
Yes.
How does Sonic Advance 3 compare to 1 and 2? Because I have Sonic Advance 1, and I'm going to play that at some point, but
I always so I never played these as a kid. I played 1 and 2 like a few years ago and I remember them both being fine. I know Moo thinks Sonic Advance 1 is awful, but I don't know that that is a very common opinion. I think they're all pretty much the same. I think it's you don't really ever get like the total sense of like Sonic speed because it's a Game Boy Advance game so the screen was so small, so they kind of feel a little clunky in that way, but I kind of think they're all like just they're all like pretty good. Wouldn't personally say any of them are like amazing. Like none of them are as good as like the original games, but they're all pretty good. And in 3 you get to you can swap characters. You could be Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, or Cream the rabbit. So that's pretty cool, but like I said, that is just kind of a pretty standard affair. And then I also played Sonic Unleashed, which was just it was
Oh
quite a
yeah.
roller coaster of emotions, honestly.
Werehog.
Yeah, so I tried this game like 2020. Like I remember just like I was just looking for a game to play, and I figured I'll finally try this game. And I got to like I'm in my recollection I played for a while, but I actually got to the very first Werehog stage and then died once and then got frustrated and turned it off. So I hadn't played it since 2020. So I booted up this time and then I got back to where I was within like 20 minutes. I'm like, what was going on with me? And then I just played that Werehog stage and I had no issues with it. And I'm like, I don't know what if I didn't understand it or I have no idea what happened.
The
But
weirdest part is that was pretty much my experience with the demo back in like 2011 or whatever. I just pulled it up, had a nice time with the Sonic stage, got to Werehog, and yeah, no, I'm not in on this.
yeah, I thought too. Then I played this time and I was like, I actually didn't hate it. And it's just kind of like it plays the Werehog plays like PS2 era of God of War, but just more boring. So it's kind of boring, but it's not bad. It's just kind of like inoffensive. It's just it exists. I don't know why it needed to be in this game, but like there were parts of it that were actually kind of fun when you played as the Werehog. But the Sonic stages were all really cool, and I like as the stages got on, they honestly they looked cool, but they kind of started functioning worse and worse because of the camera. So it was a kind of a little bit of a frustrating experience even playing the good Sonic stages.
And if you're having camera problems, I would die.
Yes, it's more just like you're going too fast and then something happens and you lose control of the camera, or you try to jump and dash at something, but you end up dashing at the wrong thing, and it's just. But I try to remember that like this was the game that introduced that new like style, so it does it's not as good as Sonic Generations because it did do it first. So I tried to remember that. And then there's hub worlds that are kind of just pointless and a little bit of a grind, which is kind of annoying. To progress through the game, you need to find hidden collectibles in each of the stages. It's just so like as the game got on, it just got worse and worse. And then the last level is just like torture. It's like absolute torture. I was looking online, and it is a very common opinion, but like you go to like this Eggman like theme parks theme stage, which sounds cool, except for that it took like 45 minutes long
Oh
of
lordy.
toggling between Sonic and Werehog, with terrible checkpoints and just like stupid like fights with the Werehog. And it's
Oh
like, oh my
man.
god, it was so bad. So it was like a game that I thought was fun. I was really into it, and then as it kept going, I just felt obligated to finish it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I would recommend it, but I also would not.
I was going to say, I don't think I'm going to be playing this game.
I think
No,
I've lived vicariously enough through you on this one.
yeah, but what if you ever play Sonic Generations? Apparently, there's like on the Steam version, there's like a fan mod where they just took the Sonic Unleashed stages of normal Sonic and put them in Generations. I feel like that would be the way to go.
Sounds good.
So to just play the Sonic stage, which probably takes like an hour of the game, and just do that, and you'd have a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, my next one was a pick that was actually spurred on by you, Parrot, which was finally finishing Bright Memory Infinite,
Oh yeah,
a Chinese made first person shooter that has got some very shiny graphics. I'll say that much. and the gameplay can be pretty darn fun too, but I considered it kind of inconsistent.
So I will say I was looking through my log before we did this episode, and I have not really played an FPS game since December. So it's been a long time since I played one. So that also might be slightly why I found this game so satisfying to play. But I just felt like the combat loop in this game was really fun.
Yeah. I think what spurred me on to get the first place was like I saw it in that Xbox presentation back. It's probably the start of the Series X stuff, so like 2019, 2020 or whatever, or maybe it was a little bit later than that. I can't quite remember the development time for this game. It was just like, all right, neat. We got a lot of ray tracing, we got some shooting. I'm all for all that, and it was fine, just pretty good.
Yeah, I never had any interest in this game. I don't know if I'd like it or not. I am getting into FPSs now, but I don't. Is it? What do you think? It'd be my type of game, or?
There's probably not much going for you. The story is a little like quickly delivered,
Yeah,
which if
that's
you're just going
generous.
for the yeah, if you're just going for the action, that means it's not getting in the way either, which is fine. It sets
Mhm.
some backdrop and gets a vibe. But I don't know. There isn't really much in the way of exploration. So either you enjoy the core of the combat that's there, which I found a little inconsistent, or there's really not much anything for you.
Yeah, if you just saw a video of the combat, that would if you didn't like the look of that, you would not like the game because that's really the only
Hmm.
part of the game that's really any fun. Because the rest of it is just walking to the next combat spot, and watching really weird plots that I couldn't even tell you what was going on.
I can kind of remember it, but not very much.
It was like she was like on the island, and all of a sudden there's like samurai or something. I'm like, what is? I couldn't tell you, but I just liked the flow of the combat because it felt really fast. You could dodge in all the different directions. You had the sword, you had the guns with the different firing modes, like parrying, deflecting bullets, telekinesis. Like it throws a lot of different things at you, which could be good, could be bad. But for me, I just felt like every combat was fun. I never got sick of it, and it only being
Yeah.
2 hours long kind of like dumbs down like the parts where that are like boring and just like I feel like if this game was longer, it would have needed a plot and more going on. But just as a 2 hour just like kill fest, it was pretty entertaining.
Yeah. And I'd say really the only thing that makes me kind of like mediocre on it is the fact that it gives you all those options, but it doesn't really use them. Whereas I was
Right.
able to get through most of the game by just hitting things with the sword, which I mean, neuron activating, good. But I kind of look for some more. I'm always looking for the next Doom Eternal, which is the
Right.
new
Yeah. This
shooter
is not
game
that.
bar for me. And this is nowhere near that. But you know what? It was one developer. So if you get it for like 10 to 15 bucks, I'd say give it a shot.
Shout out Moo. He bought this game for me, so I really appreciated that.
Nice.
Let up, moo.
All right. Well, my next game is one I'm sure neither of you played because it's extremely random, but it is Scooby Doo Mystery on the Super Nintendo. And the funny thing about this game is I bought this when at Toys R Us when they had a 2 for 30 deal, and I got this game and Super Punch Out. Clearly, Super Punch Out was the better game, but I loved Scooby Doo growing up. He was like one of my favorite cartoon characters ever. So, of course, I had to get the Super Nintendo Scooby Doo game. And I decided to play it again. And this game, it's got a lot of issues, as you'd expect from a licensed game. But it's kind of weird because it's like a mystery solving game. Like it's like an adventure game. Like you have to go around and find clues and then give them to Velma, who solves the mystery, and then you help Fred build the trap. But there's also like platforming elements in this game, and for some reason the hit detection is horrendous in this game. Like
Yeah.
you can get scared instead of die, and then you basically die from that. But like there's no indication of you getting hit. Like you just will take damage without any warning, and then you can just be dead. So, and then there's also some of the clues, like you control Shaggy and Scooby, and there's a button you have to use to sniff for clues, and it'll just appear out of thin air. And so some areas you don't know where some clues are, and you just have to randomly know to sniff around, and then it'll just pop up. But it's a really short game, like maybe 2 to 3 hours. And if I wouldn't have played it when I was younger, though, I would have no nostalgia for it, and I would just hate it. So I can't really recommend it unless you really love Scooby Doo.
That thing you were saying with the sniffing stuff out is the kind of anxiety I get every time a game gives me some sort of metal detector or
Mm-hmm.
hidden item detector. It's just like, oh no, you're gonna make me just randomly spam this button across the entire map, aren't you? I'm
Yep,
always anticipating that.
that's what you got to do.
Yeah, I am looking forward to actually playing. What was it? Scooby Doo Night of a Thousand Frights. We're gonna try to play
Yeah,
all
oh yeah,
together
That one
later
was
in
a
the
cool
year.
one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'll skip the Scooby Doo.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and the disjointed hitbox that just screams Super Nintendo era B-rate platformers.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Apparently it's a Scooby Doo problem though, because like I talked about in the top 10 games everybody hates but you love, the N64 one also has terrible hit detection. So I'll see when I play that one again if I still am as offended as, because I like that one a lot more than this one, but we'll see if that holds up true or not.
You're brave for going back.
So brave, very proud.
Sometimes I look at the games that I liked and I'm just like, I just feel like if I play this again, I won't like it. So I'm just not even gonna. I'm just gonna remember. I'm gonna fondly reminisce about it.
I gleefully destroy my own memories. It's great.
So the next game that I'm gonna mention is actually kind of almost similar to Bright Memory Infinite, and that was Rollerdrome, which I had a very similar experience with. I don't know about you, Connor, because you also played this, right?
I was pretty hot in this one.
Yeah, I was also hot on it, but I just feel like it was almost structured similarly, where there was
Yeah,
nothing going on other than just combat arenas. But this one I did like more, I will say.
I actually thought the story delivery in this one was really neat. It knew that it was being more of an experimental
Yep.
thing, and so it just let them be in the background. But it made this nice gap between the things that you are noticing if you go ahead and choose to look at them versus the gameplay and what's happening. That kind of gave it a texture, is the way I put it. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I definitely preferred the it wasn't a complex plot, but it was better than Bright Memory Infinite. But for me, this was just all about the arena combat, and it was very very satisfying.
Yes, it
Having a
was.
having a combination of Tony Hawk feeling, but a third person shooter was. I don't think I've ever played a game similar to this. I guess we can brief jet set radio somewhat, but
They executed so smoothly on it. I was really worried when I saw this game at first that there was going to be some part of the combat that was either overcomplicated or kind of janky. And I mean, you can stress this out, but even when you do, you recover so quickly and you get back into the groove so easily that it's just like it's like butter to play.
yeah, it is definitely the definition of a game that is simple to like understand what's going on, but it takes quite a bit to learn in my experience.
Yes.
Like juggling the different weapons and taking out the different types of enemies with the weapons that are good for that enemy, while also remembering to do the tricks to get your ammo back, while also dodging like a million things being shot at you, while also doing just the simple act of doing the rollerblading and grinding and all these things. It kind of is like one of those things where you feel when you're doing well, you almost feel like you're like in a zen state. You're just like,
Yes.
and then in my experience, like towards the end, the levels get really hard. And
It
it
gets
was
pretty
just
cool
like
though.
it was like a certain point where I was just like dodging everything, and I was just like perfect health. And I was like, oh my god, I'm just killing it. And then I got hit by one thing, and then I got hit by another thing, and then another thing, and all of a sudden I'm dead. I'm like, oh my god. But I never felt
Yeah.
too frustrated because I felt like it is that feeling where when I did bad, I knew it was because of something I did, so it didn't really bother me too much. So it was like really satisfying to actually like push through to the end.
Yeah, it always felt to me less about whether or not I could actually beat the levels and more about, like I was more just worried about how well I was doing, how many points I was getting, which is where I like my games to be when I'm playing them. Is I'm really interested in like doing it really well, and
Yeah,
this game gives you a lot of good indicators for whether or not you're doing something smoothly and actually perfecting it, or if you're just skating by.
I also just like the structure where it was very simple. You would unlock a few stages, and then you had to get a certain amount of medals. And the medals weren't like that hard to get, but it did require you to play the game slightly different. Like I was playing each level like a couple times to unlock more of the medals to be able to unlock the next levels. So it was kind of fun that it kind of required you to do something else, like change up your play style slightly or search the map
Yeah.
a little more or whatever.
It was something I actually was one of the downsides for me was the challenge objectives because I didn't like that process. Quite a few times I'd end up where it's just like, oh, you just need 3 or 4 more of these to get to the next tier. And so it's just pop in the level and do 4 arbitrary things. And since they unlock immediately instead of having to finish the level, it's just like, all right, pop in. And I focused everything around just doing that one little thing. Then left, it kind of felt like trophy hunting to an extent with it. So I
Yeah.
would have preferred for those objectives to be more like things that were actually added to the theme of the level and then maybe just had like another level or like a little challenge mode instead to vary something up.
Yep, that makes sense. I didn't mind it because it required me to go back, and I felt like
Yeah.
having to go back is what actually made me go from like being like pretty mediocre at this game to actually like understanding it more.
Yeah, some of them definitely were good for teaching. I just thought their position was weird.
Yeah, it also did not help that I started this game and then I went to Las Vegas for a week, and then I tried to play this game again when I got back, and my Steam Deck was broken, so I didn't get to play it for 2 weeks, and then I got it back. So it was a bit of a sporadic playing experience. So I had to like relearn the game every single time I picked it up, pretty much.
Yeah, thankfully it's not too much to forget, so
No,
it's actually pretty forgiving. Like this game it wants you to play it. There's
yeah,
really nothing getting in your way.
I'm definitely interested. I do own it and have it on my backlog too. I don't know if it's going to be quite my type of game, but I might enjoy it as long as it's not, which we'll talk about later. Jet Set Radio, I did not
yeah, no,
enjoy.
no, yeah,
So
we'll talk about that later. But this is not Jet Set Radio. It controls and it listens to you when you're doing it. It's pretty crazy.
Yes, it's a very friendly game. So I think the last thing I have to talk about, but this is still kind of an in progress play, is Pizza Tower, which my lord, this is just someone went and spent the last 20 years just finding, scraping together, and blending all of the weird parts of the 90s and turning them into a game. A very solid, smooth, and interesting game. But it's so weird. I love
Yep.
it.
I'm also very early. Shout out Poot. He gifted me this game. Everybody just wants me to play things. But you didn't succeed at the wheels. So you have to try again. But yeah, I played like an hour of it. I beat the first world in like an hour or so, and I was really into it. I think I mentioned another episode that I've played Wario Land games, and I've never been super into them. I want to try them again to see if maybe I like them more now. But this is like Wario Land, but added with all the motion of like Rayman Origins or something. And I
Yeah,
just feel like
which I was really good about.
that is what made me like this so much more, because just the flow of the game is so much more my style.
Yeah, and they even went one further on the Rayman Origins concept for me by having those escape sequences in each level where it like now okay you saw everything on your way in, now take this alternate path to rush out as fast as you can. And this is really exciting and fun way to end every level.
Yeah, that is also in Wario Land, right, Straw Hat?
it's in the one on Wii. Shake it. You
I
have
know.
to
Yeah,
once you get the treasure at the end, you have to go back through the level and escape.
yeah. I think it might be in the Master of Disguise game too. I definitely remember in one of the games, but it's been so long since I played a
Yeah.
Wario platformer that I can't really remember. I do remember it being in one of the WarioWare touched mini games, but
It might be in Wario Land 4 as well because I haven't played that one. I've only played the first 3, but eventually I want to play it. But yeah, I love the Wario Land games, so I'll definitely play this at some point.
Yeah, every single moment and like every single element of Pizza Tower seems like it could have it started as like some meme idea, but then the creators just went for it. Like the art is all Microsoft Paint quality art, but they're full on animations in it and just the level of detail and care in every single one. And then the music is all this, it's kind of hard to describe, but the artists went hard on the music. There's a lot of variety to it too.
yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more of this. I'll probably play some tonight or just this coming week.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun way to start the next month for me to finish that off.
All right, so my last two, I'm just gonna combine them because I tried to play Blade Assault, which I think is also on Parrott's backlog. I saw, which is just some. I got this one on a Humble Bundle, so I didn't really know anything about it. And then I started playing it, and it's like, oh, this is a roguelike. And I'm like, oh, I don't really like these games. So I didn't end up playing much of it then because I'm like, I thought it was just like a 2D hack and slash, but I'm like, if it's a roguelite, I'd rather just play a better one then because people are really don't like this game. From what I've read on the reviews, they said Dead Cells and all those games are a lot better than this. So I'm like, well, if I'm gonna actually try and play one, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna play this one. So I dropped it pretty quickly once I figured out that that's what this game was. And then the other game I played was NHL Breakaway 98, which obviously complete out of left field, but for some reason, I decided I haven't played a hockey game in a while, and this was the game I owned on N64, and I played it for a little bit, and it was fun. I wouldn't really play it for too long, but I put so many hours into this as a kid, and I had found my N64 copy again, and I'm like, this. It was actually like I got so into random N64 and GameCube, either street sport games or just random simulation, because even the regular sports games were kind of arcadey because they weren't that realistic. So I just liked them a lot more because in this game, like you just whack people all the time. You really don't get a penalty. So I'm just
That's
flying up and down
awesome.
the ice, KOing people. You can get
Hell
into
yeah.
fights. So I had fun with it, but I'm pretty much done with it now. So
So it's pretty much a brawler hockey game.
I mean, it's very like, I mean, there are rules like you can't. I mean, that you'll get penalties and stuff, but I like when I'm playing, I'm just like wailing on the other team, and I don't get penalties. Usually, if I get one, it's a fluke, but it's a pretty arcadey, I'd say. Yeah.
Sounds like a fun
That
part to
sounds
me.
good. Yeah. So I have two games that left, but I'm just gonna quickly say I played Mega Man X2, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty much similar to X1. I like that you had like the dash instantly instead of having to unlock it, but all in all, it was pretty much just standard Mega Man X game, which I thought was fun. And I tried X3 and just something about it, I just did not like it, and I just maybe have played too many of these in like the last few months, so I think I'm just going to be done with X for now, maybe forever, who knows. But then I also wanted to mention I also played this game called Azure Striker Gunvolt, which I would say is
Quite the name.
somewhat similar to Mega Man in just that it's a 2D action game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a platformer. There's platforming in it, but it's more about the action. And you play as like I think they were called adepts. It's kind of like mutants from X-Men, basically. And there's this whole sci-fi plot about this company, evil company that's taken over the world secretly, and they're trying to take out the mutant people. And, it was actually pretty cool how they had a lot of production into the idea of having a plot in a game like this. So like the faces will pop up and the dialogue will appear and they're talking while you're fighting. So it actually has a lot of production value in that. But for me, the appeal was the 2D action game. And what's cool is you have a gun, but it doesn't really do very much damage. But when you shoot people, they're like tagged on the screen, and then what you do is then you activate your like mutant power, which like you create this giant circle around you. That's like an electrical energy field. So any enemy that is tagged while they're in this field gets electrocuted and dies like way faster. So that is like your actual way of dealing damage. But
Nice.
the kind of like interesting balance of the game is when you are in the electrical mode, you take damage to your shield, and then when your shield drops, you take damage to your health. But when you're not in
Interesting.
the electrical mode, you do not take damage from anything. So it's kind of like a balance of trying to be like, should I be aggressive or should I be passive?
Interesting. That sounds like it has a kind of fun flow.
Yeah, it definitely did. I would recommend it.
I've definitely heard really good things about this series. There's sequels too, I think.
Yeah, so this one the one I bought came with 1 and 2, and then 3 is like its own purchase. I had never heard of these until I went to PAX East and I happened to see a booth for the third one and I tried it. What was
Oh
interesting is
yeah.
like the booth and PAX when I was playing the third one, you were playing as some character that's not the same as this one and it controlled like completely differently. So I'm really interested to see how 2 is.
Interesting. I think I remember you talking about that on that episode.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it very briefly, but yeah, I would recommend this. It's very cool. And I feel like Connor, especially, would probably get into the plot behind it all. It's just a lot of it. I was like, this seems pretty Connor.
All right. I think that's about it then for games this month. I surprisingly, I've actually watched quite a bit. So movies and TV won't be as well, depending on who you are, depressingly short this time around.
My section will be depressing as always.
Why don't you go ahead and start us off again, Straw?
All right, so my anime recommendation for this month is Doctor Stone, which is back with season 3. And the first season was really good. A lot of people were down on the second season. I still liked it, but it definitely was shorter. But it's basically the premise is everyone in the world got turned to stone randomly. And this one really smart character named Senku, he's like a scientist, so he was really smart before this all happened, and he actually stayed cognizant while being turned to stone by just counting infinitely. Like he just kept counting, so his brain never went to sleep. So eventually he woke up, and then they start discovering they're just trying to like figure out, establish the world back to how it was at before it got turned to stone. And they find like this cure that can cure the people that were turned to stone, and then they start choosing who to pick, and then they run into conflict with somebody they awaken who's like, hey, I just want to wake up these certain people, not everyone, because there's some horrible people in the world. Why should we wake up everyone? And so that's most of the conflict in the first 2 seasons. And then now they're kind of trying to figure out why, like, who had the power to change everybody to stone. And they like just build a ship. There's a lot of science and stuff to it, but it's pretty fun if you like those type of animes. It's definitely very shonen though, so I would recommend it if you like that.
I always thought it was pretty funny that the concept was it looks like cavemen and dinosaurs on the surface, but then it turns out it's all about science.
Yep, exactly.
It's like, all right.
And then the other show the reality show we've been watching was the Great American Baking Show, because we like the British one. My wife really likes to cook and bake, so we like those shows. And we just finished the Great American one. It was actually like a Roku channel exclusive, which I didn't even know there was such a thing. But we watched that, and it's a pretty interesting show. It's just about baking. So, and then my wife decided it's time for us to get back into some rom-coms again. So we watched The Princess Bride, which I had never seen, which she thought was a shocking development because she's like, how is it? Which another one of my friends has not seen The Princess Bride either, so I don't feel too bad. Which I had heard of the movie, like, because people love it, obviously. It's really popular. But I'm like, why would I, as a single guy at the time, seek out a movie called The Princess Bride and watch it? Like, I had seen clips, but we watched it. It is pretty funny. It's just very strange. I don't even know if I'd really call it a rom-com, to be honest. It's more like an adventure type. It reminds me a lot of a Disney movie.
Yeah, it's an adventure tale. In fact, I think the original book has got a fair amount of political stuff to it,
That's funny.
like fantasy political, obviously. But yeah, that's a classic in my family. We love that one.
Yeah, well, you can tell her that you know someone else that's never seen it, because I never have. I don't think I've ever even seen clips of it.
All right,
I
you're gonna
know
have to watch it
vaguely
now
what
too.
it is, but I've never seen
I
it.
can't believe your girlfriend hasn't got you to watch it yet.
No, I know she's seen it, but no, we've never watched it.
I mean, I grew up believing The Princess Bride was just something that everyone watched.
Inconceivable.
Yeah, I quote that kind of stuff all the time. So yeah, you're next on the chopping block for that, Parrot.
Yeah, you know me, I'm always
You'll love
watching stuff.
You'll love it.
The other movie we watched, the other rom-com was Bridesmaids, which I don't know if you guys have seen that. But that's definitely a rom-com, so
Definitely.
I don't really have a whole lot. It was actually pretty funny, but it's just pretty much about this. I can't remember what her name is, but her best friend's gonna get married, and she's the maid of honor, but she kind of like competes with another girl that wants to be the maid of honor, so it just ends up being a disaster most of the time. But and then my wife has never seen The Mighty Ducks, the classic hockey movie. Oh man.
Yeah, never seen that one.
So I'm like, we have to watch The Mighty Ducks because she loves hockey. So I'm like, I'm like, you have to watch this movie. It's like the classic hockey movie.
Yeah,
And
that's true. Even I know that.
So we watched that and she liked it. We also watched the second one, which she thought is the dumbest movie maybe of all time. Which it is, like, if you try to like figure out what's going on in the second Mighty Ducks movie, it just makes zero sense. Like, it is absurd, the kind of things that happen, but the first one's definitely better. But so yeah, I don't know if we're gonna make it to the third Mighty Ducks because I think that's the worst one. So if she hated the second one, I don't. It's gonna be bad. So
Yeah, if we want to talk about late '90s, early 2000s energy, Mighty Ducks 2 is definitely. I just know from seeing it on the direct to TV movie
mm-hmm.
listings all the time back when I was a kid. It's just like, yep, that's from that era.
See, that's all we've been watching. I think next time we'll probably talk about Ted Lasso
Yep.
because the last episode's about it airs this week as we're recording, so we can maybe talk a little bit more about that next month.
Yeah, we've also been watching that, but I just been saving it till when it's finally when it's all over, and then we can talk about it then. I know you've also been watching it, so we can discuss that next time.
Yeah.
For me,
You got a long list.
long list.
There's at least 6, 7, 8, 9 apostrophes there, something like that.
Exclamations.
Yeah, a lot of exclamation
That's
points.
one minute.
I watched drumroll Survivor. Can you believe it?
No.
Survivor 44 ended this month, just last week. And they're not allowed to say. I thought it was a really good season. The best I've only seen. So like at 41, they like rebooted almost, and I've only seen 41, 2, 3, 4. So out of those 4, this was definitely the best one.
Wow.
And
only
those. Well, I've only seen those 4, and I was really into this one especially. And there's a lot of different people that were entertaining and a lot of good people to root for, and I really enjoyed the winner. So Chris and I have now decided that we are going to watch Survivor Season 1 and work our way up through 40. So that will probably be the only thing we watch for months on end.
And by the time you're done, the next couple seasons of Survivor will have been released.
Yep. So that's not much to say. We watched like the first 7 of it so far, the very first season from the year 2000, and it's just so interesting to see how not only the game has changed, but how television has changed, how people act and talk, true. And the things that they think are appropriate to say on television have changed.
Yes.
I will not be repeating some of the things that are said, but it is very, very interesting.
It's incredible how much that shifts.
It also a lot more, TV in the year 2000, reality TV, I guess, game shows, competitions, whatever you want to call this, a lot more mean-spirited than year 2000 than year 2023.
Oh yeah, it sucked. I hated it.
It's very entertaining. It's entertaining, but also like, oh my goodness. But they're just, modern Survivor, it's all about like, oh, this person's good at this, so we gotta vote them out so they don't win. And in like the season 1, they're like, yeah, I hate her, she's annoying, so I'm voting her off. It's like, okay, at least you're honest.
I'm sure Addie is screaming into the void right now that you are spending all your time watching Survivor.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, the last thing I expected from starting this show was having reality TV talk in my life again. It just, maybe we made a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, this is the sort of thing I do enjoy. I just like competition, I think, at the end of the day. And it's not like reality TV like Jersey Shore or something. Like that is the kind of stuff I don't like. But like a competition show, I always can get into that because I like to, I like sports. So, it's just I like the competition.
Yeah, it's just hilarious to me. I actually love it.
Yeah, not what was expected, but that's what's happened.
We'll take it. But yeah, I finally went to a movie theater again for the first time in a few months, and I saw John Wick 4. Which I thought did a pretty good job of ending the series, I think. And then I'm not as hot on this one as I was the first 3. I think there's a little bit of the action now has too much of that signature flow, but it doesn't have enough of like the impact or release that I really loved in the first 2, where it's like they'll have a fight. The fight will be going. They're trading blows. They're shooting at each other, and it all goes very smoothly. But then instead of it, it's just him taking out a guy is like, oh, he'll knock the guy out and then move on to the next person. Then that first one he almost killed comes back, and it's a lot of like these half releases, and then it tries building again. And there's only so many times you can do that with me, especially when this is like the longest movie in the series, before I just kind of lose my energy.
Yeah,
But
that makes
the
sense.
yeah, the color work though was really cool, and like the cinematography and the sets and everything. And I love the way they did like every shot basically. I don't remember not seeing this. There was a 2 hue color balance, where it's like the shadows were one hue, dramatic hue, and then like the lights were another hue. And they did a really good job with that, I thought, and it made a lot of it very uh, striking in my memory.
So,
And then the story was good.
how would you rank the 4 of them off the top of your head?
It's been a while since I've seen the first 3, so this isn't going to be an accurate ranking, but I would probably go first in order they released.
Okay, that makes sense. I've
First
never
one
seen
was
any
my
of them.
favorite.
I've never seen any of them, but they're like some of the few movies that are not horror movies that are actually on my list.
Yeah.
But I guess if
They're,
you change, the music and tone a little bit, it's kind of like a horror movie, isn't it? Doesn't he just kill a million people?
there's a lot of death.
Yeah, I mean, just change the music, put him in a creepy mask, and boom, it's a slasher.
It's a horror movie for everyone who's not him.
Yeah, I do want to watch these at some point.
Yeah, I think you enjoy them, especially the first 2. And then I actually watched an anime for the first time in a while as well. My friend really wanted me to watch Tomo-chan is a Girl, which is a rom-com where you basically have the 2 leads are essentially shonen characters in a slice of life romance. So they're just these kind of over the top physical capabilities, just the what do they call them, delinquent, or just
Oh
top of
yeah.
the food chain kind of people, but they're just the antics they get into and the situations all end up being really funny. And there's a lot of kind of complex character work going on in this one, because they have these 2 other characters who are the exact opposite of that as the lead girl's best friends, and they balance everything out in a really cool way. So it ended up being a lot more interesting than I expected.
I've heard good things about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure somebody, or I think I've seen Jonichi. He watches like every anime that
Yes.
releases, so he likes it, I think.
Yep. Yep. So definitely, if you like some rom coms, and Lord knows I do, yeah, definitely worth it. And then saw Cocaine Bear because my dad thought the concept was hilarious. We were both kind of disappointed because the movie doesn't really know what genre it wants to be in, and it's not quite as skillful at playing different roles, like, say, I can never remember that director's name, but like Hot Fuzz and all that. It feels like it wants to be a Hot Fuzz, but it doesn't quite have the chops for it. I don't know if either of you two saw that.
I've never seen it, but I heard about it just because I know the name is very striking, so I just almost wanted to see it just because of that. So if I was more of a movie person, I would have went, but I did not see
Yeah.
it.
And then just last night, I ended up watching 65, which is a sci-fi thriller starring Adam Driver. And I guess it's the same director. I didn't know this going in because it was just another one that my dad pulled up. I guess it's the same director as A Quiet Place.
Mm.
Oh,
And
okay, I have seen that.
yeah, and I could tell they were going for a similar vibe here, but with sci-fi and dinosaurs, uh, which was pretty cool concept. But I watched it in the worst possible way, which was off center on a non OLED screen with just basic TV speakers. And everything about the direction of the movie was telling me that the directors had zero concern for whether or not, like, for making it playable on no, that's not the right way of playing it. They very much were hoping that you would have a nice setup when you watch this movie, because that's what they're banking on.
So I could not watch this movie, you're saying?
Probably not. I wouldn't
mean,
watch it unless you had someone else's theater set up to watch it on, or actually in a theater.
Yeah. So not for me then.
Not yet.
No. My problem is I just don't. My girlfriend is not a movie person particularly, so unless she wants to watch one, we just don't ever watch it like movies. So I just like ebb and flow with it. But one day I'll have a lot more to say in this section. When it gets towards Halloween, I'm gonna have a lot to say.
Well,
Yes,
you always have your reality TV to talk about, so
Yes.
This section is mostly just going to be me watching movies occasionally, and then you guys watching reality TV every month.
And rom-coms.
Yes.
But it's almost horror movie season. That's when I will come alive.
You awaken like Vlad from his coffin. All right. Well, that's it for watching then. So on to reading.
All right, so yeah, this month I finished 2 books. I'm currently reading one, but I'll wait and talk about that later. So I finally finished the Inheritance Cycle series, 4 books, and it was a really good series. I finished this one at the beginning of the month, so it's been a long time, so I don't remember the details, but I was pretty happy with how it ended. It was the final battle was a little. I wasn't sure how they were going to beat. Was it Galbatrix? Is that his name? I don't.
Galbatorix, I think.
I wasn't sure how they were going to beat him because he was like supposed to be unbeatable, and the way they kind of beat him, I feel like, is a little cheap. But I also kind of liked it, so it definitely was a good series. I would recommend, and I would probably read it again. I think it was pretty fun.
Nice.
Really, the eldest was probably the book I liked the least. Actually, other than that, I like the other 3 books a lot.
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear that the series still holds up, because this was a very early childhood series for me. So I don't really have I didn't really have a whole lot of other things to compare it to. I just knew I really liked it.
Mm-hmm. And then the other book I read was Ready Player One, which I obviously had heard about because it's very video game centric, and I never watched the movie. Actually, I kind of want to now after I read the book, but I really like the book. I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but I, of course, as a big gaming fan, I liked all the references. I liked the characters, I liked the plot, and I just thought it was a really fun read. Like, they pretty much are trying to they live in this world where there's this huge virtual reality type system that everybody uses for everything now. So it's almost like more reality than the real world. And the creator, his last like dying wish was he hid these Easter eggs in the game, and then whoever finds them all inherits like in his entire fortune and everything. So it's a fun read, and I guess there's a sequel, so I'm definitely gonna check that out because I did really like it.
I've heard the book was pretty consistently good, or at least in terms of what people thought of it.
Yeah, have you guys read it or seen the movie? Because I know there is a movie. Like I said, I haven't seen it, but
As far as the movie goes, I remember when it came out, a bunch of my coworkers were like, "Oh, you play a lot of video games. You probably enjoy this." So I'm just like, I don't need just a bunch of video game references."
Yeah, I've heard good things about the book, but less. I've heard that the movie isn't super good, but I've never seen it. I think my girlfriend read the book and enjoyed it, but I have not. It's kind of one of those books that like it's like an eventually read for me. It's nothing I'm really dying to get to, but I feel like one day I'll pick it up and try it.
And I had just watched Sword Art Online, so I was just like, "Yeah, I'm good for now."
Oh boy,
I
yeah.
feel like
Don't get
Sword Art Online ruined an entire genre for me.
yes.
So I hated that. I watched only like 4 episodes of it, but I hated it so much that as soon as I hear like something like, "Oh, they go into the digital world," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to read it. I don't want to play it." I'm like, no, it ruined it. It just ruined all of it for me. I don't know why. I had such a visceral reaction to that show, but I hated it. A lot of people like it though. I mean, it's popular.
I do not. Don't get me started on it. It's making me mad already, so I'm just gonna not say anything more.
There's definitely lots of weak points in the show, but Yeah.
I think also part of the reason I don't like it is because it was popular back when I went to anime conventions, and every single guy was cosplaying as Kirito, and I'm
Oh
like,
gosh, that sounds
if I see
suffering.
one more stupid black coat with dual swords, I think Kirito is a terrible character too. I just hate him. I think he's so boring, but of course all the cosplayers love him, and I'm just like,
Is,
no.
is that the main character?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh God, yeah. We won't have to go on to that.
I do like other genre. I do like some of the anime from that genre, though, just not sword art. So it didn't kill the genre for me, but it gives a bad taste in my mouth every time I hear it.
uh, well, Parrot.
Oh
I
God.
take it you didn't read Sword Art Online this month.
No, I would rather read almost anything else. Um, I read 2 books. One of them was just a true epic. It took me almost like 4 weeks, I think. I read The Stand by Stephen King, like the full updated version that came out, and it was like I think it was 1450 pages, 1450.
Wait, he updates his books?
That's the only one. It came out, I think the original release, I don't know the right numbers, but it was like the original version of The Stand was like 900 pages, and then like an updated and revised version came out in like the 90s or the 2000s. So I read that. That's like the only one that you can like buy at a bookstore.
All right, I'm just taking notes here that if Stephen King can update book, then I can update book.
Yeah. So I had very mixed feelings on this book. I'm a big Stephen King reader. So it was one of the more famous ones that I had never read. So I finally decided to put aside my general disinterest of a book that's almost 1,500 pages long and finally read it.
So long.
And lo and behold, one of my biggest complaints about it was that it was too long. I just don't believe that it needed to be that long. I felt like the first third of it was really interesting about because it's about, and what's kind of weird, it's about an apocalypse happening across the country. And the first time I tried to read this book was like right in 2020, so it became too real too quickly. So I'm like, I'm not going to read this. But now a few years later, there was a lot of it was very it was almost very predictive. But so I read like the feel like as that is all happening and you're introduced to all these characters, it is actually really I actually really was liking the book for like the first like 400 or 500 pages. But then I just feel like it starts to become very meandering and the characters are pretty interesting, but I just felt like the plot wasn't enough for me to be super invested in what was going on. And then it kind of just meanders and meanders, things happen, and then all of a sudden it's like it was almost like he's like, oh, I do have to finish this book at some point. So it just kind of just ends. It just kind of for a book that's 1,500 pages, it just wraps up so fast that I just was generally left unsatisfied with the book. Like I did not hate it, but I did not love it. It was just kind of like right in the middle.
Yeah, interesting.
No book needs to be 1,500 pages long. That's just my personal preference.
Yeah, I feel like that's inevitable when it's that long.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad to have finally said that I've read it. But I've read 3 books of his, I believe, that are 1,000 pages long, and it was definitely my least favorite one.
Gosh, he writes so
He
much.
does, but like honestly, like when I read it is 1,000 pages, and so is this book called Under the Dome. But both of those two, I never felt were overstaying their welcome. I just felt like they flowed better, had more going on that was more interesting. This was like not that for me.
Yeah.
Then the other book I read, and continuing my theme of just I read books that Straw Hat would never touch, I read this book called Destroyer of Worlds by Matt Ruff, which was totally on the opposite end. It was only 300 pages, and it flowed super fast, and it was a very quick read. It is actually a sequel to a book you may have heard of because there was a show based on it called Lovecraft Country, and it was on HBO. I've never seen the show, but I read that book a few years ago, and it is almost like a series of short stories that all end up intertwining together. And I won't go into too much of what it's about, but this is a sequel to that, starring the same characters years later. And if you were kind of interested in, it's a lot about, I think it takes place, hold on, let me look it up. Okay, yeah. So it takes place during like the Jim Crow era. And it stars a lot of African American characters. So it has a lot of elements about that, like living in that time period, but it also is mostly about it's honestly not really horror. It's more like magic. And it's a lot about wizards and then them trying to use this family of characters to do their bidding and them eventually trying to, get out of that cycle. So it is
Interesting.
honestly a very interesting. I think there is a chance that Connor would be pretty into this one, not Straw Hat.
It's a setup, but definitely not what I was expecting. So I would
No.
be
And that
curious
is
to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and that is why when I read the first book a couple years ago, I actually didn't really like it. But it's one of those books that as time went on and I kept thinking about it, it was like, actually,
Yeah,
no, I did like it. I just had like the wrong expectations based off of that title going
I
into
love
it.
those kinds of stories.
And then the second one I think was just as good as the first one. And it was not in the same style. Like the first one, like I said, was short stories that combined. This was kind of more like a normal book structure, but
Hmm.
equally as interesting, in my opinion.
Neat. I actually read something that wasn't a visual novel this month. I know, shocking. Uh, in fact, it's a little bit out of my normal wheelhouse. I went ahead and read Chainsaw Man.
Very popular series.
Yeah, I was half tempted to just watch the anime, but when I saw the art and what I know of it, I felt like the manga was just going to be a more appropriate way for me to get into it. And I was quite bamboozled. I was quite surprised by what was here.
In a positive way or a
Yes.
negative way?
It's finished too, right? Like it's done. The manga, not the anime. The anime only has the first
There's
season,
like a
which I've seen.
there's like a second part coming out now, I believe.
Yeah, I think there's more, but I read up to the end of like the first arc, which is like 90 something chapters. Uh, so I read a complete story and then I
Okay.
tried a little bit further than that and then realized I was just like, nah, I'm good for now. I'm just going to stick with what I read. But yeah, I was expecting a very meat headed comic with a lot of violence and
Mm.
action. And I was quite surprised to find that instead it was a very, I won't say deep, because deep would imply a lot of like philosophical thinking, but it was a very meaningful comic in a lot of ways, to me at least.
Yeah, I definitely like. I've always watched the anime the first season, and I really liked it. So I'm definitely. I could just read it because my friend Justin really loved the manga. He knew about it before it became an anime, even, and he loves it. So I'm definitely interested. I'll probably just wait for the anime at this point. But if it takes too long, I might just cave in and read it.
Yeah. I really enjoy the main character and a lot of the art. Like I like the fact that Denji is just like the epitome of a desperate young man. No money, like actually no money, actually no food, actually no human touch in his
Yeah,
life. He's just out there killing hunting demons and lumberjacking to try and go day by day and
just get
uh,
his food for that day.
yeah, and I to a small extent I just like really I really sympathize with that kind of position, and then the chain of motivations and progress after that is very compelling to me. And I love all the symbolism, this that like very punk symbolism that's used in it. Like even from the start you have the chainsaw being Pochita being his best friend out in the woods when he's just trying to live day by day, and then there's a turning point involving zombies, and then from that point on, the chainsaw is more like this really, fear-inducing symbol for all the characters and all the events that go on after that. And I like the part where they set it in like the 80s. I'm not exactly sure when it's set in this, but it seems like the 80s. The Soviets are still active, everything like that. So that inclusion of the zombies as kind of the that shifting point for the perception of the chainsaw is very appropriate, I think, at least as far as my understanding of cinema history. So there's a bunch of stuff in that that's really cool. And so it starts very meat headed on the surface, but then that kind of gets peeled away over time and it ends in a very, very unexpected way.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try this again because I actually was reading this as it came out like a couple years ago, definitely before the anime was ever announced. And I was like, it was one of those things that I liked it, but I didn't really love it, and I dropped it after like maybe like 15 chapters. But it kind of seems like it's one of those things that maybe gets grows on you more as it goes, and like you said, it kind of changes as it goes.
Yeah, I was able to kind of see enough of what it was going to be doing ahead of time, I still got surprised, but I could see that there was that upper layer that was going to eventually go away. But yeah, it definitely pushed through it if it was just like those surface level details that got you through or kicked you out.
Yep, I will get there eventually one day. There's so many things to read all the time.
So many. Uh, and then, yeah, I did actually also read a visual novel as well, but I'll try to keep this one short, which is World End Economica, which is if you just like took a checklist of things that would like the Connor niche of stories. It's like a romance with financial system drama, and then it's set on a new city in the moon. So it's got that sci-fi element, but there is no sci-fi action. It just happens, it's all based on like economics and character drama. It's like, oh my gosh, and so many of the concepts and the flow. It's just sometimes it felt like my book now retroactively kind of feels a little derivative of it.
It's almost like these people made this game for you and you just now found it.
Yeah, pretty much. So I had a lot of fun with that, but it's very niche.
Yeah, I don't. From what I've heard, it does not sound like a me story, but I'm glad that it exists for you.
Yeah. And for a while, I was going to really recommend it to you guys because it seemed like by the end of the first episode that it was going to tone down some of the more technical stuff. But then by the third episode, it busts out a full on chart explaining of how I can't remember exactly what they're called, but like these bundled asset security base type things. And it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
I love this. And it's not that it's delivering it pretty well, but we've officially gone off the deep end for what I can recommend to people who are not already into this stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. That's just like even for me, like happening like not to that level or not that topic, but like in Muv Love, the last
Yeah.
one, it's like had
Love
like all
Love
those charts, and I'm
Alternative.
just like, okay, skip. Like I do not need all this.
Where I was eating up all of that
Yeah,
sci-fi goodness.
that's like the part where you're like eating some popcorn while you're reading, like, oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah. But great story. Loved it. Don't know if I can recommend it, but I loved it. And then just one last note as far as reading goes, I might have started the writing process again for another book.
There we
Ooh.
go.
Yep, we'll see how it goes, but I just had the itch and I couldn't resist anymore.
That's what I like to hear. I will look forward to reading it one day when you're done.
We both read your last one, so
Yeah, hopefully this one will be a lot more directed than the first one since I've already done all the world building.
Yeah,
So this one should be a more exciting and a little more broad in appeal.
it'll be a different experience writing a sequel instead of writing a very first thing.
Yeah, got most of the major points already in place as well. I just need to solve a few more pieces, and then I can get to actually doing the prose.
Now you'll be up all night writing as well.
Probably.
I like when I wake up, check in. It's like, oh, Connor was messaging 3 hours ago.
yeah. And then sometimes, like, I wake up because I usually go to bed really early and wake up early, and then I'll message and Connor responded 3 hours ago, and then he'll still respond 3 hours later.
Yes, I know it's been too late of a night when I can say good morning to Straw Hat.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it for me.
I guess it's time to talk about everybody's favorite club game, Jet Set Radio. Huh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, so for the Collectathon Club this month, which I don't even this game snuck in here somehow. I think Sam wanted it, and I didn't really know much about it, so I put it in, but I don't think Jet Set Radio is really a collectathon based on the criteria, because you don't, I mean, I guess you collect spray bottles and spray, but it's not really like a set collectibles. But I knew, like, from the minute I played a couple levels of this game, and I'm like, I can see why people like this game, but this is definitely not a game for me. It's very like arcadey, score based focused, and I just didn't really like it. It reminds me a lot of Tony Hawk games, which I guess could be good if you like those games, but I'm not really a fan. So maybe like Parrott or somebody could talk more as somebody who likes them. But yeah, I did not finish this game, and I just did not really like it at all.
Yeah, I had played this back on the Vita, like probably like 8, 9 years ago, and remember finishing it then and not really liking it. But so much time passed, that I was like, I don't know, maybe I was hard on this game, so I played it again, and I also still didn't really like it that much. I liked it more than I remembered liking it, but I did. I just felt like the act of playing the game was just so difficult. Just moving was difficult. The AI was annoying. Like the races that you had to do were like frame perfect sometimes, where so it would be really frustrating. And then like a lot of the mechanic is you're trying to spray the spots on the map, which I found like that part to be fun, but then things are chasing you while you're doing it, which it just instantly made it more frustrating when like you can't control well and these things are chasing you and you're getting knocked over while you're just trying to move and you're stuck on an object and so I think I can see a lot of why people like this game because I think the vibe was really cool, and I wouldn't say I hated it, but it was just the technical, like just moving in the game is just so difficult, and when that is an issue, when you can hardly play the game without getting frustrated, it's there's only so much you're ever gonna like it.
I was gonna try the game, and then it doesn't work on my system on Steam, so I gave up.
Yeah,
But
like
I
the
think I would like it.
that's what I thought too. I'm not sure you would. I'm not sure. I think there's a lot about it that I did like like I said, the music, the vibe, the
Mhm.
idea of it, but just like the act of playing it, it just does not hold up in the slightest.
I think the one that released on Xbox,
Oh,
Jet
good
Set
too.
Radio Future,
Yep,
I get the impression that that one is a lot more polished.
yep. I'll say that I liked the ideas of this game enough that I did add Jet Set Radio Future to my backlog to try at some point because I just feel like with more polish, I could see where it would be really really cool.
I was gonna. How similar is it to Hi-Fi Rush? Because I thought people
No, no.
compare those.
No,
Okay,
I think
good.
maybe in just the idea of the vibe of it, maybe, but it's definitely nothing like that.
yeah, no, Hi-Fi Rush, a very different type
All
of
right,
game.
yeah, yeah. Because I had that on my wish list for Steam, and then I'm like, well, if this is like Jet Set Radio, I don't want this, so I removed
No,
it. But I guess that's good to know it's not like it then.
Yep, put
So,
Hi-Fi Rush back on there.
all right.
yeah, because I wanted to
You're
play
not
this because
allowed to drop that one.
that game is coming out. What is it? Something Bomb Rush Cyberpunk or something.
Yeah,
I
Oh,
wanted to know if I would like that before by playing this. So I'm still a little mixed. I'm like, if that game controls in a way that is actually normal, then yeah, I would probably like it.
it's funny. Steam says Hi-Fi Rush is similar to Like a Dragon, Ishin, and Psychonauts 2, which I don't think those games are like at all. So I don't.
Psychonauts 2, I could see.
Okay, well that's good because I love Psychonauts. So
Yeah, it's in at least the same ballpark as
okay.
Psychonauts.
Well, I did add it back, so we're back in business with that.
Oh yeah,
And then for this month, we are playing one of Connor's childhood favorite
classics.
games, Banjo Tooie. So we're probably gonna. Well, I'll say we will for sure do an episode on it, regardless of how much we like it, because Connor's. It's definitely we're continuing the rare train here, but I've never played this one, so Connor's gonna I'm sure lead that episode. But I'm very curious to see if it holds up because Connor hasn't really been enjoying the rare games as much as Parrot and I have.
No,
Is that fair to say?
it's very fair to say.
I'm just a little scared for you. That's all I'm gonna say because I
I'm
have played this game and I have 100%ed it, and we're just gonna
I'm
see.
terrified.
So look
But
forward to that. Special episode will be in July, I'm sure, because obviously we have June to finish it, and I'll be starting it with probably here in a couple days after I finish Blasphemous. So probably close. I'll be playing it by the time you hear this episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna slow play this one. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do the 360 version again, but honestly, just like my memory of this game makes me maybe want to just do the N64 version with save states because I just have some memories of this game that are not very positive. So I would maybe the save states can help save it for me.
look, if 6-year-old Connor could fumble his way through the game without No, there was a lot of pain and misery involved, but
Yeah.
I loved it.
Well, I gotta say,
I have some masochistic instincts.
3-year-old Straw Hat was a better gamer than 32-year-old Straw Hat right now. So
I I come across as negative in this game, but I do actually like this game, but definitely not as much as the first one. And there's just so many things about it that I just can imagine in my mind how this episode's gonna go with Connor, and I hope I'm not right.
scared.
I'm just hoping that Straw Hat ends up liking it at least as much as the first game.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
I was
hoping
just
for.
gonna ask. I'm really wondering if I'm gonna like it more than DK64 because DK64 had the nostalgia for me too, where this game does not. But clearly, I like Banjo Kazooie a lot more than DK64. So we will see.
Me will. And then maybe I delete the episode, but who knows? I guess that brings us to our shout outs for the month. For song, I went with a normie pick. Well, sort of normie pick. It was on the Spotify like top 50 or top 100 at some point in the last month. And I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation a little bit since I don't do a lot of Spanish, but Ella Baila Sola. It's a bop. I don't really know what they're singing about, to be honest.
But it sounds good.
Man, it's got a real fun beat to it. And yeah. So definitely a recommendation from me.
As for me, Battle Network, as I talked about before, I love the OST for these games, all of them. The intro scene or intro theme alone, you can look up for all 6 Battle Networks, and it is fire. It's so good, and it's basically a remix of a lot of the Mega Man, like original Mega Man tracks, but it's a lot more futuristic techno, I feel like. So definitely check out that soundtrack if you are at all interested in that.
Nice, nice.
So mine comes with a quick little story. This month,
Nice.
I had the pleasure of taking a flight to Ohio, which doesn't sound like very much pleasure, to be
That
honest.
sounds like fearful.
But I went to Ohio to hang out with my good friend Alexis, and we spent the weekend and we did all sorts of things. Went to an amusement park, went axe throwing, all sorts of things. And one of the things we did was we went to an arcade. I also went to a gaming store, which I wanted to mention this episode. That was a retro gaming store / vacuum sales store. So you could go get a GameCube, you could get a vacuum. Very odd. Very odd.
That sounds like such a middle country American thing.
It was very, very interesting experience. But we also went to a retro game store / arcade where we played all sorts of different things. And one of the things I played for a while was Crazy Taxi, which I have not played in a very, very long time. So that was a very fun experience. And so my song is from the Crazy Taxi arcade machine, All I Want by the Offspring. I just feel like this is such an iconic song for this game. And I've not mentioned it really on here, but punk music, pop punk music, that's just my bread and butter. That's what I pretty much listen to every single day. This is the song that I've always loved, but just wanted to shout it out because it was in the Crazy Taxi machine. Very iconic.
Dope.
Alexis is like your multiplayer buddy.
Yes, he is. We played a lot of multiplayer there.
That sounds like a lot of fun. For characters, I really wanted to shout out Agnes again from Kuro, but that would just, we're not going to do that. So instead, I'm going to take the most out of left field pick I possibly could, which was for the 2 hours I played of Arx Fatalis this month, which I'll probably resume next month. I'm going to shout out the narrator at the start. Nice. Dude's sitting there giving you the whole breakdown, this dark fantasy world where the sun went out and everyone has to live in these caves. He's giving all the lore, and then before the intro even ends, he gets assassinated by a little rat man, and then the end of the intro is the rat man being chased by guards. It's just like literally cuts off the narrator by him getting murked. It's like,
that's good.
All right, I'm going to remember that for a long time.
Nice. So my character this month, I played a lot of games, but really, like, I could have picked a couple different characters. Like, any of the Earthbound 4 main characters are worth shouting out, but we kind of talked about them in the main episode. So I actually was going to shout out. I almost shouted out Yammer Yager from the Pittsburgh Penguins in NHL Breakaway '98, but instead I'm just going to shout out Scooby Doo, which was probably my game I played, the worst game I finished this month. But I mainly just want to shout Scooby Doo for his cartoon episodes more than the actual game, because again, as a kid, he was my favorite character of all time. So I always have a soft spot for him.
He's a classic. One of the goats.
So for when we go to the character section, I try to think of all the games I played this month and think about what is the best, maybe most iconic character from a game I played this month. So no, not Samus. Obviously, I picked the Werehog.
Iconic for destroying a bunch of people's dreams.
Yes, I wonder if the Werehog will ever come back. I'm not sure it should, but
I'm going to guess no.
maybe, just maybe, the Werehog
We
will
can
live.
bring him back.
Oh boy.
You might have thought I forgot about it, but it's now time for the multiplayer minute. Parrott, let's go.
So while I was at Alexis's house in Ohio, we played probably 5 hours of Super Mario Strikers. They had the 4 of us on one team, and we just ran through the entire campaign. Amazing game, and it would have been a lot of fun in co-op. We also, unfortunately, played Super Mario Party or Mario Party Superstars. I've never won Mario Party. I never win Mario Party, and I had 8 stars going into the final round, and I still lost because Alexis's wife had 2 more coins than me. I hate that game.
I love it. Great game.
Yeah, I play a little bit more Sunhaven. Still trying to get through that with my friend, and then I've been playing Old School Essentials, which is a pen and paper RPG rule set made by people who went and wow, the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is actually a total mess. Let's clean this up and have a more playable version of it, and it's great.
Nice.
That has been the multiplayer minute. You have anything to add this time, Straw Hat?
No, I think I forgot to talk about that. I did play Mario Party 1 this month, but I just played it by myself because
sounds
actually
really sad.
Well, and the funny thing about Mario Party 1 is that that game actively hates you, like as a player. Like Ed and I'll talk about it when we do the episode on Mario Party 1 and 2, but it's funny because there were a lot of great ideas that kind of kick-started Mario Party. They had 8 boards, which like is way more boards than most Mario Party have now. But some of the mini games were bad, and then also like the game actively like just wants to beat you up.
Mario Party designed by Connor.
Yep. It's the only one that does that too, which is pretty special for it. But it's the one I grew up playing, so.
God, Mario Party. I never win. I just can't win.
I take it for your what's next, Parrot. Mario Party is not on the list.
No, it is not going to be. Believe it or not. Up next for me, I think I'm gonna keep working through Pizza Tower. And I had not thought too far ahead because I was waiting for that wheel to spin, and it did not land on me. So I'm going to probably play Cult of the Lamb, Spark the Electric Jester 3, of course, Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, probably. I also bought Inscription, so I'm just going to jump around. I also really want to play Professor Layton soon, so maybe.
Nice. Very. If you do that, I should probably get to the one I have on 3DS that I haven't finished.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very excited to hear about this Spark Electric Jester, the end of that saga.
The last in the trilogy. It's going to be a very sad day. I'm running out of Sonic and Sonic clones to play each month. So
come on, creators, start making.
Hurry.
So for me, I'm going to keep playing through Tears of the Kingdom. I'm loving it so far. I think I have like 76 shrines. I'm not going to try to get all of them. I'll probably try to get around 100 or so. I finished the first dungeon, but I pretty much got enough shrines and abilities and weapons that I can just pretty much go through the game. I can pretty much warp anywhere in the game, so I'll probably work on that. Hopefully I'll have it finished by next month, but I am slowly playing it. And then I will for sure finish Blasphemous because I'm pretty much at the final area. So next time I play it, I'm going to finish it, but I'll definitely be talking more about that. Then after that, I'm going to play Amori, which Gremlin and Moki both love, and I think you guys might play it. I don't know if you'll get to it next month, but I know you want to at some point. Then I also want to play Marvel's Midnight Suns because Ryochi loves that game and I love XCOM, so I'm very interested in that. And I've been getting that XCOM itch. So that's going to probably be after Amori. And then I also want to play Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday
Of course.
because it's a Looney Tunes game.
Let's go. You play Looney Tunes, I play Sonic.
Oh,
I also want to play Midnight Sun, so I'm not sure I'm going to play it at the same time you do, but I might play it in the coming months because I just got that too. I've heard very
nice.
good things.
Looney Tunes, Sonic, dense financial information based visual novels.
Very
The holy
similar.
trifecta. As the winner of the wheel for the community justice vote, I will be playing Bugsnax in June, and it will be
Oh, yeah.
justice. That game looks incredible. I should have gotten it the same day I got my PS5, and honestly, it's a shame I haven't gotten to it yet.
I watched Kyle Bossman do a full playthrough of that game, and it is a fun game. I think you're going to like it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I got 100% in that game, so I'm excited to hear you play it.
And then let's see, I gotta finish Pizza Tower and then a couple other things. I think there will be a mystery game I might play. We'll see.
Ooh. Trails to Zero, since Parrott's not playing that this month.
I'm gonna play it at some point, but now everybody wants me to play it so bad. I'm just gonna wait
Uh.
till it gets on the wheel.
Oh boy. Sorry,
Yeah.
Trails fans. They're gonna be a riot probably after we release the video, but you tried, but you didn't get enough people to
Yeah.
get Parrott in, so
The next Falcom game I play will either be the remaster of Oath and Felgana when that comes out, whenever, or Ys 10.
what about Trails to Reverie, which is coming out in July?
I
Hajimari?
don't know if I'll go for the replay immediately. I got a bunch of other stuff I gotta
Gotcha.
do. So if I'm gonna shove a 80-hour RPG on my stack again, which is inevitable, I'd rather put something I haven't gotten to, like the Xenoblade series now.
Oh yes, please. They're all good, all three.
Yep. And I've heard they actually run decently on the Switch, which is shocking. But
It's a miracle. I think Xenoblade 2 actually I think is the worst running one on the Switch, at least in handheld mode. But other than
that's all I have.
they still run really well though. I mean, that's a miracle that they do.
Yeah. I kept thinking about starting up Breath of the Wild, but I couldn't get it onto a
I think
emulator.
that's going to be your wheel game, I have a feeling at some point.
Yeah, I'm hoping to keep putting that off until there's a Switch 2 and they announce, oh, we got Breath of the Wild, but it actually runs at 60 frames per second.
And you're going to have to buy it again because it's not going to run old Switch games.
Ha, and I don't already own it. My brother does, so I didn't have to buy it the first time. That's it for me.
All right, pretty action-packed filled episode.
Yeah. Not quite as long as I was expecting, but that's also probably a little self-fulfilling prophecy of going, oof, we're gonna run in close to the timer.
Yep.
I should have spent more time on the wait, no, not even gonna try. I should have spent more time talking about Survivor, obviously.
Clearly.
Maybe next time.
Thank you for joining us all, and I hope that next time we can truly deliver on the Survivor talk that we really should have been offering you from day one.
I know.
So until next time, see ya.
Sayonara.
Bye.